Hi everyone and welcome back to WARNO. Today I'm going to deck build for the 2nd Infantry Division from the British. Obviously the British aren't in a good place right now in terms of price of units and everything else. They're kind of a difficult side to play as, but I'm British, I like to play as them in team games, it's still fun. Yes, they may not be the best team or best division to play in 1v1s, but no reason you can't enjoy them in a bigger team game, especially the 10v10s. So that's what I'm going to be building today, is a deck with team games in mind as ever. Obviously 1v1s are a little bit different and you'll probably approach the building of a deck slightly differently. However, let's go through, build a deck. I'm going to try and keep this to 20 minutes. My goal is to eventually have deck building videos at a maximum of about 20 minutes thereabouts. 15 to 25 maybe. I just tend to talk a lot and then get carried away with what I'm explaining about units, and I'd rather try and avoid that. So let's get into it. Now, options for supply are a bit here and there. The reality is, as you know, I don't like choppers, so I'm going to take 2 sets of the trucks. You only get 3 trucks in each stack, which isn't great. So 2 cards, 6 trucks in total. Not very good, but well, it's the best we have really. Then in terms of the CVs, well, I would actually go with the Jeep because you get 4 of them rather than 3, and that is the only reason. This has a little bit more armor, which is nice enough, but it's still going to die pretty quickly to getting artilleried or hit with a bomber, so you might as well have 4 rather than 3. And that's it. We're moving on. That is logistics done. Okay, so the infantry tab, it's a bit hit and miss in this deck. There's some good stuff, and there's some stuff that is way overpriced really for what it is. Things need adjustment, as with both British decks, to be honest, but let's have a quick look through. So you've got the Royal Military Police, which have basically anti-infantry across the board. They don't have any anti-tank. You get the gun group, but they're only a 4-man squad. These guys are a 4-man squad, I should have said. You got the Terriers, which are an 8-man squad. I'm going to pin them because I want to show you something important. You get the Terriers there, and down here you get the Jaeger. The Jaeger are 50 points the same. The Jaeger have slightly better anti-tank. Although it fires slower, it does more damage. They have a better machine gun. It has a lot higher suppression. And they have 3 more members to their squad, and therefore have more G3A4s than the other guys have L1A1s. There's a problem there. I will also note that the Terriers, while getting the same 9, these guys get 9 but could be upgraded to veteran and you only get 6, but I would leave them on 9 at trained, and I'd bring those guys in. You could bring them in with the machine gun on that vehicle there if you want. You know, extra bit of firepower, nothing wrong with that. Or you can just bring them in a truck. I've got that pinned and we can't see properly. I'd bring those guys in a truck personally, just because they're handy for the front lines. Now, as far as other stuff goes, obviously, as we just discussed, I'm going to ignore the Terriers completely because they're overpriced for what they are. I'd rather take the Jaeger. The Terriers AT group does have a nice Carl Gustav there. They are 4-man squad. Pretty handy maybe in a forest or in a town against vehicles, because, you know, that's not bad. It's got a reasonable range, good accuracy. Going to be absolutely useless against other infantry squads though in the grand scheme of things, but they're pretty cheap. So I'll stick them in for the time being. In terms of your long range anti-tank, you have the Milan 2 and the Milan 1 and the Wombat. The Wombat is obviously a recoilless rifle. Obviously here, it's completely up to what you want to bring. I think the Wombat certainly has a place potentially, but I would actually take the Milan 2. It's the only option there that has such a long range at 2,400, so it will outrange tanks. I'd also just bring it in the cheapest possible thing. You do have a Saxon there, but honestly, just bring it in a Rover. It's so much easier. Something nice and quick that you can sell afterwards. The Wombat, have a think and come back, I think. Air Mobile Gun Group and Air Mobiles. Air Mobiles have a low 80, that's really good. They're an expensive squad. I'd be bringing them in the Saxon rather than a chopper to try and keep the price down a bit more. Would I rank them up? Probably not, because I'd like as many as possible. So that's a pretty decent squad. 9 members, reasonable weapons, really it's all about the low 80. You got the Air Mobile Gun Group. This is missing any kind of anti-tank. So yes, they are very good at anti-infantry, but they don't have any anti-tank. They are a 9-man squad. Again, I would bring them in. I would bring them in a Saxon. I'm not bothered about bringing these guys in a helicopter. Then you got the rifles. These are available in the other deck as well. They're 45 points apiece. You can bring them in a Warrior or a Warrior Milan. There's obviously something to be said for the Warriors. They're not bad vehicles. I'd certainly be bringing some in this deck. Choices between the Milan and not, well, it's only the standard Milan rather than the Milan 2, but obviously it does significantly increase the range and poses a threat to tanks, so I'd stick a squad of those in there, or a card of those. What else have we got available to us? We've got the Heimatsuchen, cheap and cheerful. You'll remember those from previous decks. Obviously Panzerfaust, 11-man squad. If we pin it and we click on these guys or hover over them, we can have a compare to the Jaeger. Both an 11-man squad. Obviously same weapons. Absolutely no reason not to bring them in. The only thing about them is obviously they are untrained, like completely untrained, so they sit right at the bottom of the pile, but you get 12 of them in the stack. There's nothing wrong with Heimatsuchen with 12 of them in a stack. Absolutely not at all. Down here you get the Terrier Pioneers and the Assault Pioneers. Very, very similar units. If I just pin them and we have a look, the only difference is the Assault Pioneers, obviously you can vet up. They cost 10 points more. Weapons wise, I suppose you could argue certainly that the stuff from the Assault Pioneers is slightly better. Faster fire rate on the main rifle, etc. They do get 1 man less, so they get 1 weapon less. But you do get 2 machine guns. Probably worth going for the Assault Pioneers, and the fact you get 9 there more than anything else. So I would actually stick those in as well, because you do want something like that, because you don't get any flamethrowers. You're going to be relying on the satchel charges. You got the SAS down here. You only get 4 of them in a card. You only get 1 card. They only come in a Bedford or a Saxon. They have anti-tank and they have anti-air and they have a rifle. But they are hella expensive. Look at the price of those. 100 points. Now, they're good infantry. But are they 100 points good? I don't think so. So you could bring them in for the fun of it, and the fact that they're the Brits and they've got anti-tank and anti-air, and that's very nice and it can make them very strong. But they don't even come in a chopper. If they came in a chopper, at least you could imagine swinging them behind enemy lines to do some serious damage and, you know, defend themselves against helos and stuff like that. But I'm not fussed at all by that. So I would actually either take some more Heimatsuchen or even some more arm rifles, probably with just the standard Warrior, because that's the best vehicle you get in there. And then in terms of a commander, you can either have the Terrier leader, which comes with 4. You can have the Rifles leader, which comes with 3. Or the Jaeger leader, which comes with 4. In terms of weapons wise and everything else, Terrier's leader is actually the best, because as you can see there are 6 of them. I just checked the Assault Pioneers, they're 6 as well, but they don't get any of the weapons. And the Rifles leader is 6. But a Rifles leader isn't bad actually, is it, considering the price? It's just the fact you get 4 of those. I think I'd rather have 4 and pay the 5 more points. I'm not sure why they cost 5 more points, but it's neither here nor there, I suppose. So there you go. Infantry done, dusted. It's a bit of a mess, this tab, to be honest. Artillery wise, you get a bit more choice here than you do in the other British deck. It's really up to you what you want to bring in. I'd highly recommend the 120mm mortars over the 81mm mortars. Don't bother ranking them up, just bring in as many as you can. You got 2 more 1-point activation slots there. Well, you've got that, which is quite a small artillery piece. I mean, you really, the 155mm is the better option there, so I'd probably bring those in. Again, don't bother ranking them up. There's also this thing here, which is obviously a huge artillery piece with a massive cannon. Obviously massive HE damage compared to that one. Well, not actually that much higher, is it? 4.19 to 4.46. Obviously, bigger range. I'd honestly just stick another 2 of those in. I don't really see the benefit of this. They fire very slowly. I think this is a bit better, just in general, to have the flexibility. Tanks, you get a reasonable amount of tanks, nothing too special here. You got the Challenger there. We're going to take both stacks of those, I think, just because we can. Obviously, in team games, you're going to end up buying stuff like this more because there's more money to spread around the entire team on those big maps. The Milan and the Rover Milan, that has a Milan 2 at least. I mean, that's not a bad option for 45 points. Obviously, it's going to be very susceptible, but it's a bit of harassment. You've got the M48s, which... nothing special, nothing flash, but they are spammable, so I'd actually stick a card of those in. Then you've got to think whether you bring a command in. I mean, the Challenger Mark II command is ridiculously expensive. I wouldn't even waste your time with it. Yes, it can take a bit more punishment, but if you've got a command tank on the front line, you deserve to have it blown up. That's always my view. If you're going to take a command tank, I'd take that one. But command tanks aren't the be-all and end-all. If you want one in your deck, take that. You get 2 of them. Let's move on. We can always come back to tanks, but there's honestly not a lot more there I would take anyway. Recon, well, you got the Foxes again. If you fancy spamming some Foxes about, you only get 6 of them, of course. But, you know, you could take a couple of cards of those if you want to rush them out at the start of the game. You also got the Ferret there with a machine gun on. They're pretty cheap and cheerful. You get 9 of them. I don't think that's a bad idea. Optics are only good, though. You get some Jaeger Aufkuhl. They're an 11-man squad. Terrier Scouts are 4-man, Scouts are 4-man, and Air Mobile Scouts are 8-man. Well, straight away, you're going to take the Jaeger Aufkuhl because they are still the most ridiculous unit in the game, aren't they? Recon unit, 11-man squad, plenty of weapons. You can bring them in whatever vehicle you want. You can even bring them in a recon vehicle. So they will come in the M113A1G. I'd probably stick them in that, and then you're getting a recon vehicle for your cash as well. Mobile Scouts have a significant issue. They don't have any anti-tank. They are purely anti-infantry. They have machine guns and they have rifles. They do not have anything to deal with any vehicles. You have the Gazelle, which is quite nice, not badly priced at all. Its optics are only very good, which isn't great. But I'd actually consider bringing that in because I think a recon chopper is proving quite helpful in WARNO a lot of the time. Scouts, well, you get 9 of them. They do have anti-tank, which is good, and Terrier Scouts, no anti-tank. I really like a scout squad with anti-tank. The reason for that is sometimes they get caught out by a single vehicle. It could be a transport vehicle with a machine gun on, and if you've got one of these Terrier Scouts, they're dead. They can't do anything against it. At least here you have the option to take them out, so I would stick that in there. You get 9 of them. Just bring them in the Rover. Nothing fancy. You could bring them in the Spartan, of course. This Spartan, unfortunately, only has a machine gun on. But, you know, it's better than nothing. It also has optics itself, but... maybe just keep it cheap. You've already got something with a recon vehicle there. And then, I mean, you could spend another couple of points on some choppers or some Foxes, I guess. I'd probably be inclined to go with the Gazelle. Obviously, Gazelle's very susceptible to aircraft coming in, but can be very good at covering the sides of the map and stuff. Very responsive. Oh, it's a challenge whether you go for the Ferret. I mean, the Fox is alright because it's got the Raden, but it's just so cheap, the Ferret, and you get 9 of them. I can't decide between that and the Chopper. Let's go with the Ferret, just because they can be spread all over the place. Okay, anti-air. So, lots of single point activation slots here. Blowpipe, we're not going to bother with. If you're going to bring anything off that top row, I would bring the Javelin. It's pretty accurate and good for sticking in buildings. You're definitely going to want the tracked Rapier. You can make it ranked up, which would, you know, improve its accuracy a fair amount. And reduce it to 4 though. So I'd actually just take the 6. You can take the other Rapier, which obviously, unfortunately, there's only 3 of them, but they are ranked up, so I'd take that as well. These are all, you know, good units to have. I'd take the Javelin. Just 1 squad is absolutely fine. I mean, you could rank them up and you'd still get 8 of them. It doesn't really improve their accuracy that much. And then, of what's left, I'd honestly consider just bringing in some more tracked Rapiers. using up all of your single point slots. Helicopters, well, you've got the Gazelle rockets, which are cheap and cheerful, but they only have 12 rockets. You got the Hell Arms and the ITOR Hell Arm. I mean, out of the two, obviously the ITOR is much better. It's much more expensive. You get 6 of those. I'd bring those in, and I'd bring 1 set of those in as well for the Hell Arms. Fill your single point slots and move on. I wouldn't bother with the standard Hell Arm. If you're going to bring it in, bring the one with the decent missile. It also has a good range on it. That same range, but not as good in terms of the missile itself into penetration. Air tab, you get a bit of a selection here. You get the Harrier with its rockets, the Harrier HE, and another Harrier rocket. Now the problem with the Harrier is they aren't very good at turning at the moment. Whether that gets changed, I don't know, but their turning circle is pretty atrocious in the game. In terms of your anti-air, you've only got the Phantom, so we're going to take those. We're going to take all 4 at that rank. The Harrier anti-air, obviously it is an option, but again, they turn like a very large ship that takes forever to turn. So just don't waste your time with the Harriers right now. I'm hoping they get a little bit of adjustment. Down here, you've got a cluster bomber here. It has 4 bombs. That's pretty good. You got a Tornado GR1 with 6 HE bombs. You got this with 8 HE bombs. Nope. These HE bombs are much bigger, and you still get 6. These, a bit smaller, but you get 8. And you get this one, which has 4 big ones. They're the same size as are on the Tornado. It's all about price here, really, isn't it, at the end of the day? I mean, I'd take the Tornado or the Jaguar. You can have a look at the speed and everything as well. Air optics exceptional. I mean, nothing really has very good anti-air on it except for the AA jet here. Even the Harrier has very poor AA. I suppose you could use it for taking out choppers, maybe. It's pretty slow flying. I'd take the cluster bomber just so you have a variety. And I mean, you could take the rocket Harrier because it's pretty cheap. I just wouldn't expect too much from it. It's either that or you take another HE bomber. I mean, you certainly could take that HE bomber as well. It's very expensive though. That's a bit cheaper. Rocket jets do come in handy, and obviously, you know, you could use it against choppers because it's quite slow flying, so the gun will be handy against choppers. Go with that, it's cheap and cheerful. Helos, we're not going to take any more. Anti-air, recon, tanks. I guess we take some more tanks in this deck. Unless you took some Chinooks there. I think tanks is the way to go though. I'd stick yourself another set of the M48s in there. Just have very spammable tank deck there. 3 points left. Could consider some Rover Milans. Bit of harassment, 6 missiles each. I honestly don't know where else you'd spend those points. You could go for another aircraft, a bomber or something if you wanted. I don't play enough with air to care. I think for me personally, of what's left to fill, it would either be the Chinooks for more supply and just keep them further back. On the Milans. I think it's the Milans. Just for some extra anti-tank in this deck, because you're relying on cheap tanks and very expensive tanks, and at least this is a bit of harassment at range. So there's the deck. Let's have a quick look through. So 2 Bedford trucks and Rover CP command vehicle. We've got some Jaeger, some Terriers, some Milan 2, some Air Mobile, some air gun groups, some arm rifles in the Warrior Milans, some Heimatsuchen, some Assault Pioneers, some arm rifles in the Standard Warrior, and some Terriers leader in just a Bedford truck. Artillery-wise, we've got the 120mm Tampella, we've got the L121 155mm ×2, Then in tanks, we've got 2 sets of the Challengers. We've got the M48, 2 sets of. We've got the M48 Command, and we've got the Rover Milan. Recon, we've gone for Jaeger Aufkul, we've gone for the Scout, and we've gone for the Ferret. Purely going for numbers there more than anything else. Anti-air, we've gone for the Tracked Rapier, the Javelin, and 2 sets of the Towed Rapiers. That should be enough, especially in team games. Got the Gazelle, and we've got the Hellarm. I really wouldn't bring any more choppers than that in this deck. And then for air, you got the Phantom F3s, which are basically the only thing you have which has long-range anti-air in this deck. You know, the Skyflash. You got the Jaguar HE2, you got the Jaguar GR1 cluster, and we've got the Harrier rocket just for some harassment. And that's the deck. As I say, unfortunately, right now the Brits don't have the best decks, and they need a bit of a price rework and a rebalance and everything else. It's in the pipeline. I'm pretty sure that one of the devs posted on SD League's channel that they are working on it, because they know obviously it's not ideal right now, and they are right at the bottom of the rankings in terms of what people would play in 1v1. So that's all going to get fixed. But there we go. British 2nd Infantry Division deck. I imagine before release it's going to undergo some changes, and I will do a new video for every deck probably once the game is hit its final release date. And thanks for watching everyone. Please do like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon for some more WARNO.